Hi everyone and welcome to SWPL My Story, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Niamh Russell. How are you, Niamh?
Yes, good. Thanks, Martin. Thanks for having us on.
No, not at all. A really interesting chat that we're about to have into your career. You're currently an assistant coach at Liverpool's under 21s, but that wasn't how it happened. It didn't happen overnight. There's a whole backstory to that, and it's something that we feel really strongly on SWPL My Story to try and convey that journey. And that if you end up not becoming a player, there's still so many avenues to
Yeah.
be involved in football at the top level. So just to kick us off, how did you get started, your playing background, and then your step into coaching?
Yeah, so those that are familiar with my playing background that isn't very great. Played at an okay level. Was with Partick Thistle when they first started their women's team. Then moved to Motherwell Development and then Aki's 23s. And then when I was about 18, I just decided that playing just wasn't for me. Um, and still really loved the game of football. So I thought the next best thing to do was just to try and get into coaches and like worked alongside or played, sorry, was played alongside with coached by people like Gary Doctor and stuff who are great coaches that I really wanted to like try and follow in those footsteps. So that was like my first kind of interaction with like coaches at that level. And then from there, it was just a lot of like graft. I think I went to my local authority as a volunteer, East Dunbartonshire, and just volunteered with the mini kickers, the schools programme in there, and then just kind of worked my way up through my level one qualifications. And again, I was only about 18, 19 years old at that point. And then I was studying at college at that time. I was doing a HND in coaching and development of sport at City Glasgow College. And that was kind of where I was like, right, no, actually, I think I want to take this quite seriously and want to get as much out of it as I could. And then within the college programme, we got offered a volunteering opportunity with the Scottish FA, and that was to apply to become one of the youth ambassadors of change. In the first cohort, I think the programme is still running, but the first cohort I was like unfortunate enough to be involved with and managed to get the position of girls and women's ambassador. So that was when I was still at college, still studying, still doing my coaching with the local authority. And then from there got mentored by Donald Gillis, who was at the time the head of girls and women's football. And then just from there, that was kind of where I got one foot in the door through my volunteering position and just was my eyes were open to loads of different experiences. Met some really, really, really good people, and still those that are in contact with me today, really good mentors. And then from there got involved with the regional performance squads within the West region. And then that was when I met Amy McDonald, who then offered me a position at Rangers. And then from there was at Rangers for 5 years. And then just January 2023 moved into Liverpool for this role as under 21s assistant.
I think it's really interesting that you made a conscious decision very early on to pursue a career in coaching. And it's something I've not really discussed it much on this podcast, on other ones when I've been a guest, but
Yeah.
my background's in lecturing. I was a lecturer for a long time in sport, and something that I always talked about with my students was, where do you want this career to go? You came in and you're doing maybe a HND in sports coaching.
Mhm.
Is this a career ambition? And a lot of them it is. Some come along because they still want to play at the top level, but it just goes to show, and you're advocate to that, that you can still be involved in football
Yeah.
at a top level, having not been maybe a top level player.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, how did the move to Liverpool come about? It's kind of a bit out of the blue. You can see the progression of your mini kickers to regional stuff, working with local authority
Yeah.
to Rangers. You can see it all how that would happen, but Liverpool seems a bit of a bolt from the blue.
Yeah, was to be fair. And like I can't believe that we've been here for nearly a year and a half now. Like that's crazy that the time just flies. But yeah, I was at Rangers and I'd worked as the under-18s assistant for 2 years, and then moved into the under-16s head coach position. And I really enjoyed it. Loved working with the girls, loved working with the staff. It was like brilliant. We achieved loads, and like so some players now that worked with myself and some of the other staff for a number of years, breaking into the first team, being nominated for like Young Player of the Year at the club, and being in PFA Teams of the Year. Like that's brilliant, and I'm so happy for those players and those girls and their families. But yeah, I think at that point, I'd been at Rangers for 5 years. It was local to me. I obviously was working with the Scottish FA full time in a girls and women's club development officer role as well. So it was very heavy football, and I think for myself, I was working kind of the 9 to 5 job, as you can maybe not guess that you don't have a lot of that in football. So it was like some nights, and then trying to balance 3 nights a week at Rangers plus a match day, getting older a little bit as well, and just like knew that if I kept going with that amount of workload, and I'm little bit of a perfectionist, that I want that work to be done at the highest level possible. I knew I was going to get burnt out, and not be able to give my all, and I don't think that's fair for the programs that I was leading from a Scottish FA point of view, but also for the players and the coaches that I'm working with. So we had a like discussion, and we thought that yeah, I think a move would be good. And it was just by chance that the Liverpool job had come up for application, and I didn't really know anybody down here at all. It wasn't as if somebody had put me in touch with somebody else, like sometimes happens in football. And then just went through that kind of applicant process. So that was kind of December 2022. And then was successful in gaining the role. So started kind of end of January 2023, and now we're just ending my first kind of full season, because when I arrived in January 23, it was like halfway through one of the seasons. So yeah.
So you mentioned like working at Rangers for such a prolonged period of time. Is there some of the players? I know you mentioned it briefly, but I didn't go into specifics. But who are some of the players that have now kicked on, and that might not be at Rangers, but playing first team football at other clubs?
Yeah, so the likes of Jodie McCleary, Kirsty McLean, Emma Watson, Mia Macaulay, Laura Berries, Kayla Jordans, these types of players that are now doing really well for both club and country. And like, I was delighted that Emma got the move down south as well. Unfortunate injury, but I know the type of character she is, and she'll be back anytime soon, I imagine. So yeah, just some of those young players that you could see potential. At that young age, at under 16s, at under 15s, to really kick on and do themselves really proud, and they knowing that they can perform on that highest stage in Scotland and beyond. I think that like they've done really, really well, and like they're a credit to themselves and their families.
So you were at, as I said, Rangers for 5 years, but that 5 years coincided with the massive change within Scottish women's football. So how would you make comparisons between the time that you came in and the time that you left? Obviously, the professionalism, particularly at your club, Rangers at the time, changed hugely during such a short space of time. And it was maybe a situation that if it wasn't handled correctly, could have went off a cliff, because if they tried to do too much too soon and didn't manage it properly, it wouldn't have worked. But I think it's clear for everybody to see that it very much has.
Yeah, I think the club were really ambitious in the girls and women's space with what they wanted to achieve, and they obviously have done that, and it was like really fun, most importantly, to be involved in that. I think the relationship that the academy staff had with the first team staff, like Malky Thompson, like keeping us informed of what they were doing, which meant that there was a real kind of joined up, not a syllabus or a curriculum as such, but there was a real kind of togetherness throughout the academy going towards that, and working towards what Malky and Kev were trying to do at Amy at that point in time. And I also think as well for us, like it made our jobs a wee bit harder, to be honest, to try and develop players when internally, because when obviously they were able to go and get players from elsewhere, but we really wanted to, as academy staff, continue to push them through. And then I think when Emma, Kirsty, and Jodie did that, like that was massive for us because yes, the first team have gone professional and that's really, really great. But like we still want to have as many players as we can coming through the academies. That's our purpose as academy staff, isn't it? So yeah, like that was really great. And again, as I said, really fun to be alongside the staff and being involved and coming into first team training and seeing what they were doing during the day to then get back on the pitch at night with the younger ones and try and not replicate it, but like try and have it as close as possible to try and help that transition.
Yeah, I think as you round off a few players there, they're all playing first team and first team regulars as well. It just goes to show the job that is going on at Rangers in particular, and they've got this fantastic crop of young players that all came through at the time, and they took their chance. It's all well and good having academy players, and then they don't quite transition. They can be fantastic players and then go off and play with other teams, which in all honesty, you've probably seen that 3, 4 years ago. There was a lot of players, particularly at the big three, that would hit a point at maybe 19 years old and then they would go to other clubs in the SWPL. But talk about Rangers specifically and their match day squad, I don't have it to hand, but there must be a good 5 or 6 academy graduates that are in there and they're very young. It's not as if they were academy graduates and they're now 21, 22. They are
Yeah.
playing and starting at 17. Me and Macaulay's season is unbelievable. And even if you look at players that are out on loan this season, Laura Berry, for example, when she was still getting minutes even at the end of last season, this season as well. I think with players coming back from injury probably limited her chances this season at Rangers, and she's went to Motherwell and absolutely flying.
Unreal.
So it shows the fantastic work that is going on at that Rangers academy. And from a Scottish point of view, these players that are then going to go on and play for our national team, hopefully.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I think when you seen the Emma and Kirsty, the examples like making their first team debut, like and being selected in the squad, like for a coach that's worked with them even for a tiny bit of time, like you feel so much pride and being a little bit a part of that journey as well. And like there was no doubt in my mind, and I think there will be more to come absolutely from some of the girls mentioned, but like that they would make it at that, like to that level. And it's great how consistent that they can be as well. But again, you could see it from 13, 14 years old because of the talent that they've got, but also the work ethic that they show and the commitment that they show to their game, which also comes from great family support as well, isn't it?
So then when you made your move to Liverpool, the money that's involved, we talk about it quite often. We get some people from the media that come on here and not to put our own game down, but to say we've moved on massively. But if you're looking for inspiration, you're looking where we want to be. It is the English
Mm.
game and the model that they have and the growth that that's had. Obviously, they're probably maybe 10 years ahead of us because they
Yeah.
had the WSL and things a lot earlier than what we had SWPL. But what were the main differences that you noticed when you went down?
I think because I work in academy football and youth football, I think that's like the first difference that I noticed. I think the programme that we've got at Liverpool for the under 21s and the under 16s, which come under the Pro Game Academy, um, the format and the structure of it is 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 developed a lot more than what I had at Rangers, for example. So, for instance, just even the day that they have their education for the under 21s is all on site with us. So they come in the morning, they get a bus from the train station, they come in, have a wee bit of breakfast, they go to school for a couple of lessons, come back, have some lunch, they then go back for lessons, and then we're training. If there's a team meeting, pre-act training, then they're home for 5 o'clock, half five, six or if it's a long day. But for example, my training times at Rangers were half eight till 10, 3 nights a week. So again, that's different when you talk about the physical rest, the recovery, stuff like that. Like they're coming in, they're doing their education, they're training, they're getting fed, they're going home, they're recovering, ready to go again. I think that was the biggest difference. And then for me as the coach to actually have some nighttime back was brilliant as well. I'm sure my fiance will say the same. But yeah, just again that that little bit of a balance to like making sure that you're not burning the candle all the time like it is when you're home at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, then that's a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah, I think when people are looking to go into coaching, they need to factor in, particularly up here at the moment, it's all the unsociable hours in
Mhm.
the world. It's weekends, it's
Yeah,
evenings. But if you want to do it, and I've already mentioned it, but you're a testament to that, that there is progression, and the further that our senior teams go full time, you'd like to think within time that'll filter down. I know that in the men's game and the boys' youths, there are certain clubs that are associated with specific schools
yeah,
that they do kind of the same model that you've just described, but the way that our women's games go, and then fingers crossed it will transfer into
yeah,
girls getting that
absolutely.
opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it helps the education side of it as well, because I think that like they know that how important it is because it's associated with us at Liverpool. So they are educated, and we have an education lead that's an LFC member of staff that makes sure that their timetables are like aligning with their football. So for example, we play on a Wednesday, so all the girls get Wednesdays off college or off school. So it just means that there's that little bit of a joined up approach, and I think that takes the pressure off the player a little bit more as well, because they're not having to worry about that someone is looking after that for them as long as they're turning up to school, they're trying their best and they're making sure that they're working hard, then rather than juggling it with a school that's maybe not got that sport background. I think that is a difficult aspect to try and deal with.
So now that you're in that role, you've was it a year and a half that you've been there
Yeah,
now.
just coming up to the end of this season now, so yeah.
So you're coming to the end of your first full season. How would you reflect on that? Obviously, you were finding your feet when you came in for the half a season when you first went down. Are there things that you would do different? I'm not asking you to give away secrets here, but is there things that now that you're in that even more professional environment that you than you were when you were up in Scotland that you would do going into this next oncoming season, or things that you would change?
Yeah, I think to be honest, this the beginning of this season was a little bit transitional for us. We obviously bought Melwood back as a club, and that became the home of the women's first team in our PGA academy, so our under 16s and 21s. And for a women team or club to have their own facility is fantastic. Like we have fantastic facilities. The pitches are unbelievable. Kitchen, chefs, anything, meeting room space. Like it is a great facility. But in that transition, we also became, rather than an under 21s like Super League academy, we became like a PGA academy where we had a lot of new staff come in. I think myself and only one other was an existing member of staff from the season before. No, three staff were existing from the season before. So a little bit of change and transition with new head coach coming in at 21s, new coaches coming in at 16s as well. So a little bit of transition with the staff group, but also with some of the players as well that were new first year 21s. So that was really great. I was moving into Melwood, getting settled into that kind of program and that kind of schedule, which has been fantastic. But I think all in all, like we're really pleased with how we've done. I think we've managed to get 6 players involved in a first day match day squad at under 21s, and for us that's more success than what how we finish in a table or how many cup finals or cups that we win. But we have done well in that too. But I think that becomes a little bit because we are pushing the players to get to that first team level. I think the performance steps and points come with that, and trophies come with that as well. Touch wood, we've actually got a cup final next Tuesday, so hopefully the trophies come with that. Um, but yeah, I think it's been a great season. There's always going to be room to improve, though. I think, but especially first year working as a different MDT, we'll reflect on that in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll work towards next season as well.
So, if there was one lesson or one piece of advice that you would give back to the Scottish game, how we could improve it as a whole from your experience over the last 18 months, what would you think would be the thing that would have the biggest impact on improving our overall game? But then obviously from you as a youth coach, that kind of perspective of allowing players to then look at this as a potential full-time career.
Yeah, I think like it is different. And again, as you mentioned earlier, that it was about the WSL and English game has been professional for a lot longer than the Scottish game, and you can see the vast improvement that the Scottish game has made. Like even from me down here and watching some of the games, like last night, for example, like it has really, really developed. And I think from the youth game, it is just try to work out that sticky part of them being young athletes, young scholars, and trying to get a better mix with that. I think that to get into a day program would really help the professionalism of some of the clubs, but also help the development of some of our best talent from a Scotland point of view as well.
Well, that's great, Niamh, and I really appreciate you coming on. It was fantastic listening to you, and wish you all the best for your cup final.
Thanks, Martin. Cheers, appreciate it.
No problem. And thanks everyone for joining us on SWPL My Story.